This is fantastic on two levels. First of all, what it's going to add to the Riverwalk. And the Riverwalk, as Mayor Buckhorn will tell you, is going to become the centerpiece of this city as it grows bigger and bigger and better and better. And I've been to Riverwalks all over the country. Of course, the quintessential Riverwalk is the one in San Antonio. For those of you who've ever been there, it's not a very pretty Riverwalk. This is going to be the most beautiful Riverwalk in the country, I think, by virtue of the scenery that you'll have from one end to the other, highlighted, of course, by the minarets down around Curtis Hickson Park. But this is going to be a fantastic Riverwalk. And on the other level, we have been very slow in recognizing the rich history of Tampa and the Tampa Bay area. I think finally we began to do it, and I think the great event that brought it to a crescendo was well, the work of Tom Touchton and the others that made Tampa Bay History Center a reality. But people aren't aware of the richness of the history right here. I mean, everybody knows that Teddy Roosevelt was here before he went down to Cuba. Very few people know that the 12th President of the United States spent a lot of time right over here in Fort Brooke. Zachary Taylor, who became a general and later became president because of what he was able to do down here. Andrew Jackson, of course, was the guy that had all of this established. But even beyond that, the first ever commercial airline flight ended up right near here, in the water right near here, Tony Janus. Most folks aren't aware that the first ever night flight took place over Tampa. Most folks have no idea, looking at pop culture, aren't aware of the fact that Ray Charles lived as a child in what is now Perry Harvey Park, and these were his formative music years that he lived there. That's where he really began his music career, learning music, and he lived in Tampa when he did it. And talking about pop culture, most people aren't aware that the most popular dance of all time, arguably, Gangnam Style notwithstanding, the twist was originated by some young kids on what was then Central Avenue. And it was picked up here and made into a song and later became the sensation that it became. And one other thing, talking about Tampa Bay area history, the cradle of American exploration, European American exploration, is St. Petersburg. 10 years before DeSoto, 100 years roughly before Plymouth Rock and before Jamestown, it was Panfilo Narvaez and Cabeza de Vaca who landed on what is now Park Street and began their exploration of the Southeast. So we are rich in history, to say the least, and we are celebrating our own great history here in the Tampa area today. And to kick things off, to get things started, I would like to bring up a guy with whom it has been a huge passion for many years, and he has done so much to bring this to fruition today. He is the chairman of the Historical Monument Trail, the committee, and the vice president of the Friends of the Riverwalk, Steve Anderson. Come on down.
Thank you, and welcome to our rainy event. We're not undaunted. This is Florida. We're all used to it, and we'll cope with it. The thing that I'm a little disappointed in is I think some of the seniors who are going to be here today have probably not been able to come because of the rain. But we'll, believe me, they're looking forward to seeing the monuments. Jack, thank you. Those of you who don't know obviously know now from what he's just said. Jack is a history buff in his own right, really knows more about Tampa Bay and the history of this area than most people. I'm really proud and glad that he's been a big supporter of this program since I started it. And Jack, I can't tell you how much it means to me that you have agreed to help us. There are some elected officials who RSVP'd. Thank you, Louis. Who RSVP'd, and I don't see them here yet. We'll talk about them a little bit in a minute. Is Rafael Ebor here? Yes, he is. Okay. Rafael, it's good to see you. Some people I want to introduce who are not elected officials but are very important to this event. Rafael, the great-grandson of Vicente Martinez Ybor. We're so proud to have you here. We have representatives of the Howell, Ferguson, Savage, McKay families and other descendants of Captain McKay. We do have representatives of the Henry B. Plant Museum Society and the Ybor History Museum Society here, both of whom we communicate with constantly. There are some that deserve special thanks, and I want to make sure that we recognize them today. I truly want to thank the volunteers who've devoted hundreds of hours to make this possible. It's been me, but it's been mostly these folks who have put so much time and effort into it. I can't say enough about the tremendous efforts of Eric Nowak of the law firm of Delapart and Gilbert, Beth Latham of the Latham Group, my assistant Chris Castellano, who's really borne the brunt of most of this, my daughters Sarah and Stephanie, and as of today my son Nicholas, being a big help to us, and of course Lee Hoffman of the city. Lee's been a tremendous help to me at every turn. Also want to thank Ryan Toth, Gio Ruiz, and Chris Spivey of the Beck Group. The Beck Group has literally saved us thousands of dollars by voluntarily creating the concrete foundations upon which these monuments will be permanently placed. A huge job. They've been tremendous, and I really appreciate it. Also want to recognize Dan Mahurin and the members of the board of the Friends of the Riverwalk who are here today and have always been so supportive in everything relating to the Riverwalk. Representatives of the Performing Arts Center and the Tampa Convention Center who have been very, very helpful in helping us pick the absolute ideal place for these monuments to be placed. And certainly not last, I want to give a very special thanks to Tom Touchton, C.J. Roberts, and the Tampa Bay History Center, who have been an inspiration to me, a partner in all ways in this, and very supportive and helpful from the very first day that I started talking about this, and are still helpful as witnessed by their allowing us to use their beautiful facility. Tommy and CJ, thank you so much. You'll see today the quality and the diversity of our honorees is a tribute to our 9-member selection committee of historians who have not only done a tremendous job in their selection of honorees, but I want you to know also they spent a great deal of research time and drafting in preparing accurate, factually correct biographies of these people that are placed on our website and our Facebook page. So really, we're very fortunate to have a great committee. Okay, so in a few minutes, you're going to see our monuments, and I think you're really going to like them. Hopefully, we'll see them not in the rain. But I want to make a few notes to you that you'll observe about these monuments. First, the pedestals are solid granite, about 2,000 pounds each, formed and brought to us by Mark Noggle and his company, Stuart Mellon, here in Tampa. And they're truly a beautiful piece of stone. The bronze busts are the incredible work of our artist, Steve Dickey. And both of these gentlemen have put a lot more heart and soul into this project, believe me, than I ever expected from someone that I would be, that would be earning some money by doing this. These guys have done this as a passion, and it will be evident to you again when you see the stonework and the bust. They are truly beautiful. A couple of other comments. You'll notice that the heights of these monuments are different. That's because they are as close as we could come to actual representations of the heights of the honorees. Another thing you'll notice, well, their faces are as accurate as we could make them, as Steve could make them, and I think he did a great job based upon photographs, portraits, and in some places, mere sketches. Finally, I'll mention to you that when we do the unveiling or when you walk around the monuments, you'll notice a QR code, a stone QR code on each brass plate. Now, for those of you who know what a QR code is, you can pull out your personal device, and if you have the application, scan it, and it'll take you to our web page where you can read all you want to read about these heroes. If you don't know what a QR code is, see one of my daughters or my son. Of course, these monuments are expensive. We've been very fortunate in raising private contributions for these monuments, and we're very, very pleased with that. From the initial leadoff contribution of the firm of Rude McCloskey, we're also proud to recognize the important contributions of the law firm of Trentham Kemper, and I see Hal Mullis is back there. Thank you, Hal. Contributions of Tampa General Hospital, again the Latham Group, and Chapel Roberts. We're also honored that this project has been recognized as a significant historical tourism project, and we have in fact been awarded a $120,000 grant by the Historic Preservation Challenge Grant Committee and the commissioners of the Board of Commissioners of Hillsborough County. And I haven't seen Victor Chris come in. Victor, are you here yet? Victor was going to be here, as was Mark Sharp. And I wanted to especially recognize Victor. I'll do it anyway because Victor is the fella who initiated the motion to create that grant fund. He's been incredibly supportive. Also, I don't know, is Ted Couch? Did Ted arrive? I think Ted and Victor are probably together, stuck in the rain somewhere. But anyway, Ted is chairman of the Historic Preservation Grant Committee, and I want them to know how much we appreciate the $120,000. It will go a long way towards more of these monuments. And last, on the financial end, I saved it for last, I'm really happy to announce to you today that the Historic Monument Trail and the Friends of the Riverwalk we're announcing that Bright House Network is going to join us as our electronic media partner. And Bright House was very supportive of the Friends of the Riverwalk in the very early days and gave a lot of money and a lot of TV time. But they have advised me that they are pledging $50,000 in cash towards the Historic Monument Trail, and they've also committed to in excess of $300,000 of television time to promote both the trail and the Riverwalk. And we're going to get a lot of use out of that time, and I'm very, very excited about that. More details of that partnership will be forthcoming. How many of these monuments will there be? I had a friend ask me at a dinner the other night, he says, well, does Tampa have enough heroes for maybe 10 of these? And after I quit laughing, I asked him, you know, say, when you drive down the streets that you've driven down every day of your adult life here in Tampa, have you ever considered how those streets got their names? Mabry, Franklin, Gandy, Jackson, Swan, Selman, Fletcher, Fowler. Have you ever thought about that? I said, no. Of course, there's a story behind every one of those, and probably someday there'll be a monument behind a large number of them. I asked him if he knew, as Jack said earlier, that 3 men had served here in Tampa before they became President of the United States. He was astounded by it. Did our busy port and did our world-class airport just happen? Or perhaps were they the result of decades of dreams and perseverance and hard work by a few local heroes? How about MacDill Air Force Base, USF, UT, and the other institutions that are our economic, humanitarian, social structures in this community today? And I'd submit to you all, when we look at it that way, it's pretty clear we're going to be producing 6 of these monuments for quite a few years in the future. When I recognized some of the people and thanked some certain people earlier, I intentionally didn't mention one. And I owe this person a very special thanks, because without his blessing, indeed without his active support, this would still be a plan. Tampa continues to be blessed by outstanding leadership. And in this mayor in particular, we have a motivator and a let's get it done attitude, which is just what I needed for this project. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor Bob Buckhorn.
Steve, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I got 2.5 years to screw up, so. To all of you that are gathered here today, you know, let me say, first of all, thank you. And to my friend E.J. Salsinas, who is a living, breathing historian in his own right, and who has chronicled for all of us the history of this great community and continues to do so at every opportunity. E.J., it's always so good to see you. And thank you for continuing to tell our story. It wasn't that long ago that I stood in this very building right here on what was a stage. It happened to be Fox News, and it was during the RNC. And I was able to tell Tampa's story to the entire world. Because, as all of you know, that Republican National Convention was the second most viewed television event in the entire world. And it was an opportunity to showcase our city for folks all over the world, not just in Indiana, but also in India, who didn't know anything about this great community, who perhaps had never heard of Tampa, Florida, who didn't know about the great diversity and the color and the ethnicity and the shades and the passion of what we are here to honor today. And we were able to tell that story like we have never told that story before. And not only did we put on an event that set the standard for how to conduct those international events, but we also did it in the face of a hurricane. And we did it flawlessly, and many of you were involved in that, and you should be so very proud. But we got to tell Tampa's story in all of its shades and ethnicities and genders and orientations. And we got to tell the story of not only a great American city, and the world got to see this view right here, but what perhaps they didn't get to see and didn't get to experience was the shoulders of the people who came before us, and the folks on whom this platform is built, on whom this city is built. They were male, they were female, they were black, they were white, they were Hispanic, they were Indian. They represented the diversity of America at that time. And the shoulders that I stand on, whether it was the 5 mayors before me who started this Riverwalk that we are going to complete within 18 months, or whether it was the pioneers that we are going to unveil today, all of us should be very, very grateful for what they accomplished. Our job is to not only carry that torch forward, but to make sure that young people like Steve's son right there get an opportunity to learn more about this great community and why it is and who it is that helped make us great. So to all of you that recognize that, Steve, and to Dan, and to the Friends of the Riverwalk, and to the sponsors, and particularly to Bright House for stepping up to the plate, and to Steve and Dickie, who I want to do my bust before I die. At the rate I'm going, it will be sooner rather than later. But to all of you that understand that we can't forget who came before us. We can't forget who we owe that sacred obligation to. We can't forget that we are obligated to carry that torch that they put in place. We can't forget that the standards that they set are now our standards. We can't forget that we have a moral obligation to live up to the expectations that they had for this community and for their family. We carry that burden, but it is a burden well worth carrying. This Riverwalk, this city is on the move like it has never been before. There is an electricity about this community that hasn't existed in 2 decades. And honoring the folks that got us to this point, the folks that set us down this path, the folks that we owe that obligation to, is a very, very worthy endeavor. Thank you for the wisdom that this committee showed in choosing the folks that they did. We have a lot more people to honor. We didn't get here by ourselves, folks. We got here standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. Our job is to finish the job and then to pass that torch to that next generation. Steve, thank you. To all of you, thank you. This is an exciting day.
They're going to have to get you to sit still long enough to get a bus done, if you want to get it done. Might have to wait till you're long retired before they're able to get you to do that. By the way, I also wanted to mention Commission Chairman Ken Hagan had planned to be here, but something else came up and he was unable to make it. But he sends his regrets in not being able to be here for this very historic occasion. I'd like to introduce the Honoree Selection Committee. These were the people who had the monumental task of making the first 6 selections. Because believe me, as was pointed out by Steve earlier, there are plenty to choose from. But our committee is, and we'll ask them to please stand, or if you're already standing, sit down. I don't know how we get the one standing. It looks like there's the committee already. But Doris Weatherford, Andy Hughes, Dr. Robert Kirstein, Fred Hearns, Jack Fernandez, Leland Hawes, Manny Leto, Gary Mormino, and Rodney Kite Powell. And Rodney, who spends most of his time here at the Tampa Bay History Center immersed in our rich history anyway, is the guy who was the chairman of this 9-person selection committee. And we're going to have Rodney come up here now and explain how these selections were made. So come on down. Take it. It's yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack. And thank you all for coming out on this rainy day. And as has really been talked about a lot, we have a lot of people that we could have honored and a lot of people that we're going to honor in the future. And these first 6, we can also call the Big 6, were really easy to do and hard to do all at the same time. There are a lot of people we could have chosen, but when we sat down together, the 9 of us, and talked about really who are the cornerstone people of Tampa and Hillsborough County, the 6 that we came up with were certainly kind of no-brainers when we think about it. Again, looking at the diversity of our community, I think that the 6 honorees reflect that incredibly. The fact that Gary Mormino came up with the idea of having Native Americans as a whole being honored was very innovative. And again, when you think about it, well, of course, we want to talk about the people who came before all of us here in Florida, the people who were here for thousands of years before that. And so I think before I get too far into naming anybody else, I think we want to maybe go outside and see this, but I'm going to call Steve to come up here in a second and find out if that's really the case. Are we going outside? Okay. So how do we want to do that? How do we want to?
Yeah, we've got a little break in the weather here, so now we're going to go down and actually where we planned this for all together anyway, and actually see these busts. Afterward, of course, come on back up here, because talk about history, thanks to the Columbia Restaurant for providing refreshments tonight, some sangria and tapas and some things like that. We'll assemble up here again afterward, but we ask you now to join us as we head downstairs, and we'll have Rodney explain who these folks are that we're honoring, for those who might not know. I think we all know, but we'll learn more about them.
All right. Unveiled. The mound builders, as I'd mentioned upstairs, honoring the original Native Americans in this area that have been here for about 12,000 years before the European contact, and unfortunately died out after about 200 years of that contact period, gone by around 1700. You have Eleanor Chamberlain, who is one of the earliest suffragettes in the area and one of the earliest feminists in the area. She worked very hard for women's suffrage, and of course we have that now, and so her efforts paved the way for that. Clara Fry, a African-American nurse, founded a hospital for all people of all races in the Central Avenue area. There was an African-American hospital named in her honor in West Tampa, and now there's a wing of Tampa General Hospital named for her as well. James McKay Sr., early pioneer Tampan, came here in the 1830s, was a major shipper, major cattleman, and one of the early mayors of Tampa as well. It's like a quiz for me. This is Henry Plant. Really kind of goes without need for introduction, but Henry Plant brought the railroad to the area in 1884, built the Port Tampa Inn, built the Tampa Bay Hotel, now the home of the University of Tampa and the Plant Museum. Really brought the economy and brought life to a very, very sleepy village of Tampa. Last and certainly not least is contemporary Vicente Martinez Ybor, founder of Ybor City, founder of the cigar industry in Tampa, and along with Henry Plant, one of the two people who really made modern Tampa what it is today.